only to be later unmasked as one of America's most notorious serial killers. This isn't a plot from a Hollywood thriller, but the chilling reality of Rodney Alcala's life. Known today as the dating game killer, Alcala was once a contestant on the popular show, The Dating Game, where he was introduced to millions as a bachelor looking for love. Little did the audience know, they were watching a man who would later be convicted for multiple heinous crimes. A man whose charm and charisma hid a dark, deadly secret. His unsuspecting victims, drawn in by his allure, had no idea of the danger that lurked beneath his charming exterior. Rodney Alcala, the man who would become known as the dating game killer, was not always a criminal. His journey into the abyss of crime was a slow descent, one that began with an appearance on a game show. Born in 1943 in San Antonio, Texas, Alcala's life took a chilling turn early on. Rodney Alcala, the man who would later be dubbed the dating game killer, had a seemingly ordinary childhood. He was one of 3 siblings born to Raul Alcala Buquor and Ana Maria Gutierrez. But beneath the surface, his family life was anything but normal. His father abandoned the family when Rodney was just 9 years old, leaving a deep scar on his psyche. Alcala moved to Los Angeles with his mother and siblings, where he graduated from Los Angeles High School in 1960. He then went on to join the Army at 17, but his military career was cut short due to a nervous breakdown. This was the first visible sign that something was terribly wrong. Upon his return to civilian life, Alcala attended UCLA School of Fine Arts, signaling the beginning of his double life as a student and serial criminal. His first known criminal act occurred in the late 60s, a chilling foreshadowing of the horrors that were to come. He lured a young girl into his vehicle under the guise of offering her a ride home, only to kidnap and assault her. Fortunately, she survived, but the incident marked the start of a horrifying pattern. These early crimes were just the beginning of Alcala's terrifying reign of terror. His cunning and charm would later allow him to evade justice for years, leaving a trail of victims in his wake. As the 1970s dawned, Alcala's crimes began to escalate in both frequency and brutality. This was a period when the darkness within Rodney Alcala fully emerged, revealing a chilling appetite for violence. His modus operandi was consistent. He would approach young women, often feigning to be a professional photographer. With his charming demeanor and persuasive skills, he lured them into secluded areas to conduct what he referred to as photo shoots. Unbeknownst to these innocent souls, these shoots were nothing more than a prelude to their impending doom. In the early 70s, Alcala's killing spree swept across the West Coast. His victims were primarily women, but his bloodlust knew no bounds, claiming the lives of girls as young as 12. The victims were left in gruesome states, often strangled and posed in carefully selected locations. These were not random acts of violence. They were meticulously planned and executed with cold-blooded precision. Law enforcement was baffled. Alcala left little evidence at his crime scenes, a testament to his cunning and calculation. Despite the mounting body count, he managed to stay one step ahead of the authorities, slipping through their grasp time and time again. However, Alcala didn't just evade capture, he taunted the police. He would call the parents of his victims, relishing in their anguish, feeding off their despair. His audacity knew no bounds, even appearing on a popular TV game show, The Dating Game, amidst his killing spree. He was brazen, he was bold, he was the embodiment of evil. Yet, as his crimes grew in number, so did his notoriety. The media dubbed him the dating game killer, a moniker that would forever link his name with a reign of terror that spanned most of the 1970s. Despite his growing notoriety, Alcala managed to slip through the fingers of law enforcement time and time again. His cunning and audacity kept him free, leaving a trail of heartbreak and horror in his wake. But every reign of terror has its end, and Alcala's was fast approaching. But like all criminals, Alcala's luck eventually ran out. The year was 1979. The police were able to track down and arrest Rodney Alcala, the man who had terrorized the streets for far too long. His reign of terror came to a screeching halt, marking an end to the nightmarish series of events that had gripped the nation. The evidence against Alcala was overwhelming. A series of photographs, chilling remnants of his horrific acts, were discovered at his residence. These images, some of which depicted his victims, were instrumental in sealing his fate. The police also found jewelry belonging to some of the victims, further strengthening the case against him. The subsequent trial was a long-drawn affair, filled with gruesome details of his heinous acts. Alcala, showing a brazen disregard for the gravity of his actions, even chose to represent himself. His attempts at manipulation, however, fell on deaf ears. The jury saw through his facade and the verdict was unanimous. Rodney Alcala was convicted on multiple counts of murder. The judge, moved by the sheer brutality of his crimes, sentenced him to death. It was a fitting end for a man who had shown no remorse for his actions. The capture of Rodney Alcala brought with it a sense of relief. The monster that had haunted the streets was now behind bars. The victims' families could finally breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that justice had been served. In the end, the dating game killer was finally brought to justice. Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer, left a legacy of terror that still haunts America today. His heinous crimes, spanning from coast to coast, claimed the lives of at least 7 young women and girls, though law enforcement believes there may be more victims yet undiscovered. His reign of terror, spanning over a decade, sent shockwaves through the country, forever changing the way we view safety and trust. His capture in 1979 marked a turning point in forensics and investigative procedures. Alcala's case was instrumental in the development of DNA testing and database systems that have since aided in the capture of countless criminals. The seismic impact of his case on the American public led to a heightened awareness and vigilance, forever altering the perception of safety in our society. Rodney Alcala, a man who used charm and wit to hide his monstrous nature, serves as a chilling reminder of the evil that can lurk beneath the surface.